Very cool. And so Jared, we talked a little bit in your intro, at least, about having some international experience as well, whether it's speaking or maybe some project work too. That sounds super interesting. Can you share a little bit about that as well?
So I got a great opportunity to go and talk about project management and how you manage portfolios. So we are in the process. The last 3 or 4 places I've worked, we have rolled out project and portfolio management tools. And especially in local government, they're always behind the public sector is always behind the private sector to some degree, right? So you guys are using all these different tools and so forth, and there's still paper and pencil in there. So we went and pushed to try to get them in the digital age. And in order to do that, we had to adopt some project and portfolio management tools. And so we built those at the last 3 places that I worked for local government. And we're continuing to do that. I did that consulting on that for a while before I came to Nestle Purina. I worked on that in several different states on vendor selection and so forth. And as you guys probably know, software is not the ultimate solution to anything, right? We're promised that, but it never fixes every single thing that we want to.
Never does.
No. And so instead of using commercial off-the-shelf software, we're using some really flexible software in some of my most recent builds so that we can customize it a little bit more to do the things that we want to do. And one of the platforms that I'm working with, Smartsheet, they actually asked me to come and talk about my experience in England. And so we went and I spoke to the European and Asian markets, or European, Middle East, and African markets on developing a PPM strategy and how you do change management in your organization, right? Because we all like adopting a new piece of software. Yep. Hey, we're going to start using this today. Oh, great. It's the end of the world. So how do you address that? And of course, Matt's going to have certain requirements and Kyle's going to have certain requirements. So how do you make sure that both of them are happy?
I was literally talking to somebody this morning about the adoption of software and how bad the construction industry is with it. And a lot of it is, there's a lot of risk in construction. And I mean, risk, it could be, we got such thin margins, or contractors and stuff got such thin margins, and their business models are tried and true for decades, right? For 100 years, they've kind of mostly doing stuff the same way. And they know if they do it this way, they'll get 3%, right? And so they can take a risk and get 6% or maybe 0%. And it's like, is it worth the risk? Is it worth getting the pushback? Whether it being a new tool in the field or whether it being a new, just installation process or whether it being a software, it's got to be like to me, what I've seen, it seems like it's got to be such a magnitude difference increase that like they literally are looking at it like, I'm going to lose money if I don't buy this thing and implement this thing, right? For them to almost take the chance. I don't know. Is that, y'all seeing the same thing?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that, I've been on both sides of it, right? I've been the local government, I've been the owner, I've been the contractor, I've sat in all the seats. And it's interesting, like I think one of the most frustrating aspects of it is some of the games that contractors have played in the past, like with local government, is instead of doing quality checks on your design, you'll just send it to the local government and ask them to do your code review, right? Mm-hmm. Well, they'll tell us if something doesn't meet code instead of actually doing a peer review or reviewing your drawings. And that would never happen, right, man?
Oh, I mean, I haven't done it, but
Yeah. And
you see it all the time, though. You do.
Oh.
Everyone just punts it down the road. And then the owner is the one that ends up footing the bill because the drawings aren't coordinated, and they're not complete. And so it may meet code, or even if it slips through the code department, the inspector comes out and stops the whole show and said, well, we got a building permit. And they're like, well, I don't care. Like, it doesn't meet code. Anyway.
Well, and another thing that I think happens all the time is contractors go and designers or owners are in a hurry, right? And they throw these out to the contractors, and the contractor just looks at it and says, this is a gold mine because these drawings are so vague. I'm going to change order this to death, and I can come in low on my bid because I will more than make up on it on change orders. And, you know, I think both sides, both the owner and the contractor, we have to do a better job and be more in partners, you know, be more of a partnership on this, because otherwise, you know, it's just going to get to a point where you can't work with each other, right?
And the work that you're doing now, do y'all do a lot of, is it all low bid, you know, design bid build type work, or do y'all do any kind of CM at risk, design build?
So we're doing all, well, I shouldn't say that. Most of the work that I've done in the past has been design bid build. Not doing a lot of design build anymore. I think that we're not, you know, when you work with local government, you want to spend local funds, low bid, right? But you also have to open it up to all these bidders. So like when I would do demolitions, I get two guys in a pickup truck that are telling me that they can demolish the apartment building, right? And then when you question them, it's like, well, we're going to rent the equipment. Okay, well, show me where you've done this in the past. And so you spend a lot more time understanding equipment and, you know, their competencies and whether or not their experience indicates that they're capable of doing it than doing low bids. And I don't see that being any different being in the private sector, right? Like you have people that you know can do jobs, and let's just, the reality of it is the more complex the project, the fewer bidders there are, right? There's lots of people that want to bid on it because it's big dollar, but there's fewer of them that can actually do the work.
They weed themselves out because they're like, I can't do this. Yeah. It's going to tank me.
Even companies that you know have been successful at doing certain things, that doesn't mean they're going to be successful in what you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. You know, Alberisi had a mining company, a mining construction company. I would have never thought that they would be bidding on doing underground work, you know, but they bought a mining construction company and they were good at it. So, you know, there's a capability there, but that doesn't mean that just because you have electrical in your name means that you can do electrical work, right?
Well, exactly. And a lot of this, in my mind, is really going towards the pre-bid process. And are we doing the proper bid evaluations? Are we really, you know, are we constructing a good bid walkthrough with the right qualified contractors that we're soliciting? And then even beyond then, yeah, so you get some numbers thrown at you, but what do the numbers mean? How did they get there, and who is actually giving you those numbers? There's a lot of questions there. You can't just look at the low number. Doing that, you are screwed.
Yes, and you got to. I think you got to pre-qualify.
Yeah.
Right. Don't wait. Get, like, you know what you're going to be doing. Start qualifying those contractors so that your list of people that you're going to send it to is a short list of people that you know can do the work. Because otherwise, you spend your time weeding through this nonsense, and you may have nothing at the end of the day.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, and so I've definitely seen that too, where you know, you go out to bid for unknown contractors, maybe because they're on the vendor list, but you don't necessarily know if procurement's fully vetted them. And so you start getting into these discussions, and you find out, well, this is for a controls package. They've never done controls work. Okay, well, this is a waste of time. Then we're not going to ask you to bid this project.
Yeah, or you're going to do a $50 million project and they meet all of it, but then you find out that their whole company, like their annual revenues are like $45 million. Yeah. It's like, you can't. There's no way you can do a $50 million project for me.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to be your guinea pig anyway.
not for that.
So the whole purpose of this whole podcast is to really be a resource to kind of give back to the next generation kind of coming up. We kind of touched on it earlier on the emails and all that. It didn't really get the proper training and all that. If you were to give kind of one piece of advice to the next generation kind of coming up, you know, maybe vision. I don't know if anybody ever even, I didn't even know project support and analysis was a job title, you know what I mean? But like somebody's like maybe like wants to kind of go your path and kind of, you know, what's a piece of advice you'd give to them?
I think you just got to keep your eyes open and see like where the industry's going, right? That's how I got to where I was at. Is I kept my eyes open and I determined what people, what I thought I could do better than other people, and then I worked towards that, right? So, and knowledge is power. That's like an old saying or whatever, and you really got to understand that. Like if you know how to do things, it's going to save you. I've been through several layoffs and I've never lost my job, right? Because I've always had some sort of skill set or some niche that set me apart, right? And I think that people need to figure that out, figure out what needs to be done that nobody else knows how to do, and go teach yourself how to do that. Or better yet, go find somebody who does it really, really well and start learning from them, right? Find yourself a mentor and understand that like mentors are not a one and done sort of situation. You find yourself a mentor that has maybe knows what you want to know and has lined themselves up the way you do, so that you believe in what it is that they did, and then figure out how they did it, because that's the big thing, right? We'd all love to go be Jeff Bezos, right? Jeff Bezos, become my mentor. And, I will learn what it is that you did, and maybe I can take some of that and I can be as successful as you are. People need to look for mentors like that are successful where they want to go, and tag along.
I'd say sometimes it's hard to find a mentor like that can actually mentor properly, right? Like even if you were to get in touch with Jeff Bezos, he may not even. Mentorship's a skill set. It's a skill that I think even if you're senior and accomplished, not everybody's a good mentor. Like you may be able to get Jeff Bezos on the phone and say, "Teach me everything you know," and he's just like, "I don't know. I just work and I'm here." Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's definitely a skill to learn. So, anyway.
No, I agree with you, and it needs to be something that the mentee strives for, right? Like you got to go out for it and you got to find it.
It's got to be a two-way relationship, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's got to be a partnership, and that was actually in our show notes, was reverse mentorship. That, I guess, what does that mean to you?
So, like from my perspective, I go out and I look for people that are moldable, right? Somebody who I think has that yearning, that wants to learn more, who has that ambition and the drive to do more, and that wants to listen. And if I can find that type of person and they're interested, then I kind of start a relationship with them right now, right? And knowing that it's going to be hopefully a relationship for life, because I'd love for them, if we build this relationship, that they rely on me for insight and so forth moving forward.
That's, for me personally, like it's nothing you even find on a resume or someone's LinkedIn profile or anything like that, right? It's like, but if I can find somebody who gives a damn, like that's what I've said, like find that they give a damn in somebody, and you find those that give it, and like I've got all the time in the world for them. Like I'll put all my work aside to go walk the job with them, to like teach them stuff, and if they're interested in wanting to learn and curious, like I'll do my work tonight. Like let's go out here, and like that sort of stuff feeds me. It's exciting because you can see the light bulbs going off in their head and stuff like that. But I'm not going to drag you out from behind your desk to go walk the job site if I'm going to drag you through the whole thing and try to beat it into your head. Like I don't, like I don't care about that.
Yeah, wow. I have a process that I use with new employees, and so when they come on board, people talk about like how you can best be managed, and people say, I hate to be micromanaged. But let's face it, we've all had employees that have to be micromanaged because they don't know what they're doing, and they may hate it, but that's the reality of it. And so I tell everybody that starts on my team that, step one is that you're not going to know what the problem is or the solution, and I'm going to tell you what the problem is and the solution. Step two, you're going to come to me with the problem because you've learned how to identify the problem, and I'm going to tell you what the solution is. Step three is you're going to come to me with the problem and a variety of solutions, and I'm going to help you make the decision on what the solution is. And then step four is you're going to come to me and you're going to say, we had this problem and I solved it, and this is how I did it. And it becomes an inform. It doesn't involve me at all. It's just so I know about it. And then step five is like this nirvana group think, right? And it's one of those situations where I want to go take 2 weeks of vacation. And when I leave the job, I know that every single thing that happens within my work unit is going to happen the same way because we took this time to discuss all these things and we think like we're one person. And when you can think like you're one person, then you know people are going to make the right decision. If they're not making the right decision when you're going through those processes, you slow it down so that you can help explain to them that this is how we solve this problem, or this is how we determine what the problem is. And so far, I've been pretty successful in that method of teaching.
That's a fantastic philosophy.
I worked with a guy one time, kind of along the same line of very simple. He was like, I know when somebody's ready for promotion from like an assistant project manager to a project manager. It's like when they can make their own to-do list. And like on the surface, you're like, that's super simple, make a to-do list. But you really have to like, to be able to make a to-do list, you have to be able to prioritize what's important and really think through it all and know the problem, know the solution. And it's like, when you really, on the surface, like, okay, make a to-do list, that's easy. But like, when you really think about it, you're like, yeah, I get it.
Well, and you have to have those communication skills too, because you need to know what needs to happen. And I deal with a lot of people that seem to not have the communication skills, or at least I've dealt with them in the past. You know, I think some people attribute it to generational differences. I don't know if that's it or not, but you know, being able to go and like ask questions, you know, that's a pretty important aspect of work, right?
Yeah.
And we all have to be able to, we have to have that psychological comfort where you can go and you can ask questions.
Be able to ask the stupid questions too. I mean, not the ones that like I can go Google it or go look up in the drawings and figure it out, but like, you know, don't be ashamed of like, if you don't understand it, ask this kind of a stupid question, because you're just going to be doing yourself a disservice if you don't really have an understanding.
Well, and that's a mistake I see made all the time, especially with new people, is they come on and they don't want to look stupid. You know, like I just went through engineering school or just finished trade school and I don't know what EMT is, or I don't know what an FAT is, and they don't ask and they try to figure it out through context. And that's fine. That'll get you through it for a while. But at some point when you've been on the job for 2 years and you don't know what that acronym means, you look a lot more stupid then than if you would have just asked it in the very beginning. Like, what is this?
Well, and something that I've learned on projects too, especially, is that a lot of times it seems like the questions that you may have and don't want to ask, and when you finally do, somebody else is like, "Oh, I wanted to ask that." I mean, earlier this week, I was doing a site assessment, and we were talking about the schedule because they're having some schedule issues. And I asked the question. I'm like, "Hey, this may be a dumb question, but how did we make this schedule? Like, what was the process? Like I want to understand how it was put together, front and back end, so we can try to figure out, where is our risk in this thing? Because right now we're not happy with it, we're not confident, but why? How was it built?" And somebody else is like, "Oh yeah, I had the same thought." All right, there we go. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. Sometimes it just takes that icebreaker, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I've been the stupid question asker a lot of times, even being kind of a senior guy, right? You're sitting in a project meeting at OAC or something like that, and you're like, somebody will say something, it'll be, we had these new piers we were drilling, and they just kept saying it like everybody knew what they were talking about, like this new technology. And I was like, what are you saying? What does that mean? Does anybody know what that means? And like 3/4 of the room was like, yeah, I don't know what that means. I'm like, okay, I'm not the only idiot here. Like, what are you all talking about? Like,
yeah. And everybody's just accepting of it, right? It's like, hey, we kind of know that it means this, but we really don't understand the details.
And everyone's just sitting there like, okay, yeah, bobbing their heads, and like everyone's clueless. I'm like, geez, I don't know.
Yeah, when I see people like you, Matt, in a group, that's the people that I flock to, right? Because those are my people, the people that are willing to ask the questions. That's how you're successful, right? You ask the questions that everybody else is afraid to ask. You open it up. You benefit the group by doing it. Like, somebody has to do that.
It just takes experience, I think, of like, I mean, I've looked really stupid on projects before, and like, I'll look stupid again tomorrow, I'm sure. But like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, just got to do it.
Yeah. I've done some really stupid things on projects like that. Podcast on some of the things.
We'll have to have we're running out of time. We'll have to have a part 2 and just talk about stupid things we've all done. It'll be like the secret show. Like, we'll have to like I don't know. We'll have to figure that out.
I like it.
You gonna wrap us up, Kyle?
Yeah, I think so. So, Jared, anything else you want to share with the listeners before we hop off here? It's been really great conversation having you. Love to hear about your background, and there was a lot of good knowledge shared in this one too. So, looking forward to sharing it out to the larger team. But any last words of advice?
No, I think we pretty much covered it. Podcast flies by, doesn't it?
Okay. I know. You look down, an hour's gone. You're like, man, we just got started.
Yeah,
unbelievable. All right. Well, then, very good. So just to our listeners out there, thanks again for listening. Don't forget to get a hold of us, like, follow, share us on social medias, and get a hold of us if you have any questions. Jared, any good way to get a hold of you or get in touch if somebody wants to? Just maybe go through us, or what's the best way for you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect.
Pretty easy.
All right. That being said, I think we'll wrap up there. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. It's great getting to know you.